Hello, and welcome to episode 47, part 2 of the Carry On with Carrie podcast. This is a continuation from last week's episode with Tara Boothby, the author of Love and Love's Energy. She is a registered psychologist, and it was such a good conversation that we had to put it into 2 parts. So, without further delay, now it's time to talk. Okay, looking at the perspective of somebody who claims to be an empath or feels everything when they walk in a room, they take things personally. It kind of relates to what you were sort of talking about, I feel. How and what advice would you give to somebody to regulate yourself in a situation like that? How do you put safe boundaries for yourself?
It's a great question, and it fits with that whole people philosophy that I'm trying to really notice, and our defaults. So we're whole people, and we're flawed and fabulous. So sometimes, like, empaths will be like, "I'm an empath," and sometimes I think a person will identify with that word, and they can feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's like, I want to love this part of me. With an empath, I think people who identify as an empath oftentimes feel guilty about feeling. Recently, I had clients coming in and they're telling me they're doing the colors personality spectrum, which I used to do with clients.
Okay.
It's a great little personality test. I don't really do personality tests anymore. That like orange, green, blue, gold. And I remember back when I used to do it, this woman came in. And the quadrants, there's the cognitive, more cognitive sense of self is 2 colors, green and gold, and the more emotional is blue and orange. And this person had lots of orange and lots of blue, so lots of emotionality.
Okay.
I said, yeah, you're like 65% emotionally in tune, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the correct. I'm just hypothesizing what happened,
Yeah.
but it was a large part of what showed up. And this person just started crying and said, my whole life I've judged myself for being emotional, and it's 65% of who I am.
Right.
So inside of our whole self, there's things we might judge as flawed, but maybe it's our giftedness.
Right.
Yeah. And then spiritually, sometimes we'll call it discernment. So being emotionally in tune is discernment. From an attachment point of view, attunement. Some people are better at tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have more mirror neurons. I don't know. I'm not a neurologist.
Yeah.
But it's a gifted part of who you are. And it's part of the contribution to society. If we view it as a part of who we are, and if we can touch what we've believed is flawed about that, and really notice that my flawed thoughts about my emotionality are included just as much as my good thoughts about my emotionality.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, because it's what would you? Okay, so then there's the opposite side of that, where you are detached from everything, where you don't pick up on the cues of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And does that all? Again, does this all have to do with attachment? I mean, maybe I'm on the wrong path here, but
Well, let's take a little pit stop in trauma.
okay.
Because there is, being alert to emotion,
Mm-hmm.
there is a place where that's a trauma response, and it's like how people have survived.
Right.
Being muted is also a trauma response. Fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, all of those things. And really muting our emotion is a part of attachment. So we can even just call it avoidant. I avoid my feelings. I step back. I withdraw, or whatever the tendency is. And it is like maybe a person hasn't been taught
Mm-hmm.
that emotions are okay,
Right.
or they haven't had somebody show it to them. So just like their giftedness, the giftedness might be that I have a busy brain and I'm better at like troubleshooting, and my giftedness is to see the different moving parts so that I can be better at providing some structure. But it goes back to like my fear of being heartless. If my expression is more muted, and I believe the fear that I'm heartless, that's why I'm muted with people, then I am living in my flawed sense of self, and my behaviors will show.
Okay.
I could be this is true for me. I can be overly blunt. I can be overly just be reasonable. That's something I like to say inside when I get activated. It's like, could you just be reasonable? My children and food. Could you just eat the croissant? Right. It's a croissant.
Yeah.
Could you eat? It's a croissant.
Even when you say the word, it makes you want to eat it.
It's a beautiful piece of pastry. Why are you not eating it? Let's be reasonable.
Yeah.
And I don't say let's be reasonable to them, but inside.
That's how you're feeling.
Yeah. Because we're whole people. I move in and out of feeling secure with myself and feeling insecure with myself. Going back to self-love, the more secure I can feel inside, the more secure I can be with others. Right. So if you're highly emotional, that is not an insult. Highly emotional has been a bullet that has been tossed or like directed at people. You have no feelings is a bullet that's been tossed at people, or you're so cognitive. Whereas it's like, so cognitive is a great thing for one person, and highly emotional is a great thing for other people. We're all people.
Right.
Different flavors of the same.
Yes, and we're all teaching each other different mannerisms, different things, different feelings. As you walk through life and meet different characters, everywhere you go, that's what I find. You can leave one place and then go to another, and somehow that same character will follow you around. And I believe that's the lesson you need to learn.
Yeah. If yes, I agree with you. I will say, there's a certain variety of people that I keep. It's like, okay, I haven't quite learned my lesson there.
Yeah.
I haven't quite learned my lesson there. And sometimes I get really burnt. And we're not alone in that. You identify with it. I do.
Right.
I think what's interesting when you were talking, what came to mind, I used to love the movie Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin Costner. And Morgan Freeman is in that movie. And so he's sitting there, whatever, they're in some town, and this little girl comes up to him and she says, "Did God paint you?" Oh. And he says, "Allah loves variety."
There you go. Yes.
But sometimes just noticing the matters of difference that we can see is a beautiful metaphor of the matters of difference within. We need really, really cognitive people. We need really, really emotional people to teach each other.
That's right. Yes. And I believe everything kind of comes in your path for a reason.
Yeah.
At the right time.
Yeah.
You might not see it and reflect back 10 years later.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you find that? I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the term happenstance. I'm perpetually disappointed that it is a business psychology term. Occupational psychology. Happenstance is something that was derived from looking at our success or our trajectory as a professional or just an adult. Oh, now I know why I had that job, and now I know I did that at work. Now I know because here I am, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Happenstance is so much more beautiful when we can extend it not just to work.
Yes. To life.
Yes.
Why did I meet this person and that person? And
yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you about the circle of security. What does that mean? I noticed it in your that's something that you're working on quite a bit.
Well, yes. So Circle of Security International is a beautiful program. It's based out of Spokane, Washington. That's where the originators are. And it's, I'll say, with attachment work, it's really the what. It's a simple way. Well, I say simple, but it's a clear image of attachment from a parenting perspective. Right. And so they have this picture that they teach, which is just hands. The hands symbolize the parents. There's a circle going out from Bowlby. At the top of the circle is a secure base. So that's like go out and explore.
Okay.
And the bottom is the safe haven. Come back to me. So we are really, as psychologists or social workers, people helpers, will get this training. We learn the model. It's a curriculum. Then we can do it with clients.
Right.
But it is the circle of security is a beautiful image to help us understand attachment. And we're always doing these circles. So my circle with my kids is a little bit smaller. It's gotten bigger and bigger as they've aged. Your circle with your kids is way bigger than mine.
Right. Yes.
But as moms or as parents, we're always sort of navigating, how do I support you going out and how do I support you coming in?
Mm-hmm.
And when I mess it up, how do I repair it with you?
Yes. Yeah. That's the big thing.
Yeah. We rupture and we repair.
Right.
So, and previously you were talking about Spock and things. With Bowlby, what's fascinating is that originally when they started researching attachment, they thought secure attachment was more of this avoidant position, the very well-behaved kids, the kids who were self-regulating, managing more of their own emotion, expressing less need. But as they went on in the research, they realized that the balance is that not that kids who are overly emotional are wrong and kids who are not are right.
Mm-hmm.
It's that ebbs and flows in the middle.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So as Bowlby went forward and the father of attachment, he's like, oh, okay, I'm getting this better and better. And then we just keep getting it better and better. The circle is my biases. I think it's the best map for how we view parent-child attachment right now.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And it's funny that you say that because, again, 22, my kids and my one son's come back. And there's that, we had the detachment 3 years ago when he moved away for college, and now he's coming back. And how do I facilitate how he's changed?
Yeah.
How am I dealing with his change? Wow. Yeah.
And
that's powerful.
Parental guilt is something you mentioned, and that's so often a dynamic when we look at parenting. But we don't have to have all the answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's some great books out there that'll tell you what to do. This is how you respond when your kid comes home. Or Gottman's Baby Makes Three. I think that's a great book that parents should read.
Right.
There's a lot of how-to. Gottman is good at how-to. And then life happens. Mm-hmm. And attachment is really messy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you read 3 books, your son comes home and you're like, the books didn't tell me any of this.
Yes, yeah.
The books didn't tell me that I would have a fussy kid. You know, when I went to my prenatal classes, they didn't tell me that I wouldn't be able to breastfeed. They just said you'd breastfeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I didn't have a backup plan.
Right.
But that's where being advised, being educated in books, life is outside the lines so much.
Mm-hmm.
So if we know I don't have to feel guilty, I'm just going to be in the mess of it. I'm going to just try to do the circle. I'll get to know who he is, this new idea of his sense of self. Mm-hmm. And then I'll see how he'll let me bring him back in.
Right. Yes. Just be patient.
Be patient with yourself.
Right.
And when you screw it up, because we all do, then we just repair. Mm-hmm. So I think I was too much of a mother there. Was I being like all caps mom now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll work on that, but it might happen again.
Yes.
And those things where with an adult child, it can take that pressure off.
Well, and communication is huge, right? And just talking real about things like that. Too.
Yeah.
I find that when I do, and I just speak up, the air gets lighter in the room, and I think they start to understand that you're a human being too.
Yes.
Right? You don't have all the answers.
You don't have all the answers, and they don't expect us to have the answers.
Right. Did we expect our parents to have all the answers? I guess if you look at it in that regard, right? When you're growing up, do you ever think of that with your kids? Like what was I thinking at that age?
I think that sometimes too, when parents appear to be an expert, I remember when I was in grade 2 or 3 and I was, wanting to prove I was so hard. I was doing math. I remember being like, oh, I just really have to make sure this is obvious. It's hard. Grade 3 or 4, hard math. And my dad was a banker at the time doing his degree in accounting. Well, I'll help you with your math. Dad, you wouldn't understand. It's French math.
Right.
But I didn't want the expertise. I wanted them to be like, oh, wow, this is hard. And do you want help?
Mm-hmm.
You're probably going to get it on your own. Hey, good thing you're good at math.
Right.
Whatever
Yes.
I actually wanted. Kids oftentimes don't really want answers. Sometimes they need answers.
Sometimes they need them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then with adult kids.
But that also goes as okay. So that's interesting
Yeah.
too. So as a man and a woman in a relationship, now it could go either way, but in my experience, men tend to like to solve problems.
Yeah.
So say you come home from work and you're telling your story and something really upset you that day, or you were really happy or whatever. That need to fix.
Yes.
How does that also relate to attachment? Because
Yeah.
in order for you to feel like you've helped somebody,
it's what I would call a default. So
Okay.
It's a behavioral strategy, the fix it strategy.
Okay.
And it is a great question, Carrie. And I'm okay with answering it because I feel like it's knit into me. Emotionally focused couples work
Mhm.
will notice that traditionally one partner is more prone to fixing it. And it's a strategy. It's a way to disengage from emotion. Is I'll just jump up into solution. Let's be reasonable.
Right.
It goes back. So if I'm in fix it mode, I'm just being, let's be reasonable. If we do A, B, C, and D, we never have to have this conflict again.
Mm-hmm.
So the fixing, this is how we can have a positive reframe. So the fixer, and then traditionally there might be more of a person who's willing to risk conflict.
Right.
And so we might say so, and there's all these negative stereotypes, the fix it, or sometimes we'll say critical, which sounds terrible. There's good intention.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's willing to risk emotional heat actually is a keeper of emotional closeness.
Right.
Somebody who is wanting to fix it is actually more the keeper of peace.
Okay.
So if we're not fighting, we're doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
If we risk conflict, we could be closer.
Right.
And you can see those differences. It's like, oh, okay, I'm not trying to drive him crazy by yelling at him. I just want to be close.
Uh-huh.
It's just like, and if we can, again, fall into our whole place. I'm not flawed because I fix it. I'm not flawed because I was the one that started the fight or whatever a person might say. My good intention is I just love this person so much.
Yes.
That I will turn the volume up, the emotional volume up, or I turn the emotional volume down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And that, wow. Yeah. That again, I keep saying wow, but it's
good. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It makes me feel good.
Well, no, I just love your point of view. I could sit here and talk forever. Okay. So, meaning focused narrative approach of attachments. What can you explain that?
Well, experiential attachment focused work, that's what Sue Johnson calls it. She is a beautiful theorist. She's an excellent author. She's got books that are for the public, Hold Me Tight and Love Sense. Great books. Mm-hmm. Her theory books are amazing. I adore her writing. And so experiential attachment focused work is really humanistic, is what we'd say. So it's about like Rogerian, we're with the people, we're immediate, we're in this space. Mm-hmm. I've kind of ruined myself in a lot of ways because I'm so much about energy with people that it's hard to like give handouts or just do things like that. So I'm doing pretty good at talking about how-tos or behavioral things right now. This is good. Yeah. Within that humanistic approach, we could put meaning and narrative. So narrative is this beautiful metaphor-based, creative imagery type of therapy. Okay. You are the narrator of your own story. And let's play with that. You're a singer. So how are we going to notice the music and how that really resonates with you and the images of that? And then also somebody who's maybe a mechanic. Right. So how are we going to create narrative and story and imagery and experience and also just like your story? So the narrative piece. Yeah. Meaning is really rooted in existential, but Frankl is like bad things happen, we make meaning from them. Mm-hmm. The root of existential epiphany is that I see the bad, And I realize that's just a part of my whole self and my whole narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And I make meaning from that. So the good and the bad, I'm not a God.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm fallible. And my fallibility is totally included in who I am. If I try to ignore it or omit it, get rid of it, I'm trying to be a God.
Right. And then powerfully it comes back to you even harder.
Yeah,
Do you find that?
Yes, because so you could cut off your hand, you could cut off your foot. But from a wellness perspective, when I wrote my thesis almost 20 years ago or over 20 years ago, whatever it is, I talked about the metaphor of a balloon. And if the balloon is full of air,
Mm-hmm.
so when our wellness is doing good, there's even air pressure.
Okay.
If socially I'm not doing good, it's not like I can take a bite out of a balloon. All of the air pressure is impacted.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I love my workaholism. I'm really good at it. It's like my thing.
Yes.
Because I have a busy brain. So if I put too much air in the balloon,
mm-hmm.
it's overinflated. You can see the fibers of the balloon stretching and being uncomfortable, or it gets misshapen,
yes.
or it fucking pops.
Yes. Yeah.
Or I lose grasp on it and it fizzles away.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it is, how do I notice myself, what is good about me and what is not? Mm-hmm. And how do I create this sort of balanced sense of self? The more balanced, the more whole and wholly loved I trust I am, the more whole and wholly loving I can be with others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so, okay, when writing this book, how I haven't read it yet, and I can't wait to read it.
Well, then we'll just have to meet again.
Yes, we will, because I'm now.
And this is your copy. I'm going to sign it and give it to you.
I'm so excited. So going through the process of writing this book, how, again, I'm sure it wasn't linear. I'm sure it was like,
yeah.
How did that in your own self-therapy and realization of, I mean, it's teaching yourself as well at the same time, I would think.
Yeah, there's a few things. So with the process of writing is, if you want to write, try. Why not? And if you want to write, put it on the back burner of your brain and get the tools that you think you need in place. And then all of a sudden one day, try and pull the pin. Mm-hmm. I had this attachment idea in my mind. I had it in my bones. I've embodied attachment for so long. And then I wondered about the connection with God. Mm-hmm. And because I think that attachment theory proves the existence of God. I do.
Right.
I just think, like, if nature is so important and then nurture is vital to our existence, why is nurture? Mm-hmm. Why is love so important? And I have a hard time believing it's just for people. Because if we're just cells, why would cells think that love and this energy of relationship? I don't think cells would do that. So that's my bias. I do believe that theories of attachment are good to bring us to question, is there a God? Nobody has to agree with me. Mm-hmm. Nobody.
Yeah. Right.
But that's just me. I'm like, at least question. Mm-hmm. Be philosophical about love. I was in this place. I wrote the book, and I got connected with William Paul Young. And I told him some of my thoughts, and I'm like, I think our mess is really important, and I think that God needs us to be messy. He's like, well, I don't know. If you believe in God and you say God needs something, then you're putting something above God. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I don't know what I think about that.
Yeah.
Because it didn't fit. And I mean, a theologian could expand further, but I'm a student of theology. I like theology because it's poetry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And philosophy. So I stopped and I put the book away. I didn't touch it because I needed to process through this thing about what now I know is the whole self, that we're all included as whole people. Put it away for a couple of years. And then this past summer 2023, I went to this retreat I love going to. It's all these weird Jesus-y people that we like to theorize and philosophize in Oregon. It's called Open Table Conference. So I went with all my weird friends We were being weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I got to bring the book out. So I got back into looking at it. I was like, I actually think this isn't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's okay. I think it's good. I reached out to my friend, David Tenson, who's a poet. And I didn't know that he had a small publishing label. I was like, David, I know we don't know each other like super good, but could we connect and see if you have any tips? We connect and he's like, well, I've got a publishing label and I like what you're talking about. Let's see if we do something. It was August. I had 40,000 words and I thought I should have 60,000. So I just like put a bunch more in.
Yep.
In September, I got linked up with Felicia Morel to edit it. I think it was too soon, but I was just so anxious that I wanted somebody else to look at it. So Felicia looked at it. She's a beautiful soul, really helpful, very fix-it orientated.
Okay.
My experience was, it was like, she's such an editor in that it was like, let's make this better, not about feelings and friendship. I know her better now. We've chatted. She's just like all love, but I needed the fixer.
Yes, exactly. That's what their job is. Right?
And then, David edited, we did all these things. And in January, so really from July of 2023 until January was when we really like did it.
Right.
How long did it take for me to write it? Not long.
That's amazing.
It's just me, and I write all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I do all sorts of things with writing, and I write poetry all the time.
Right.
So it was a part of me,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a fast typer. I'm not good at it. I'm like,
but you just,
but it was good.
Yeah.
And so I think the things that were important was being prepared. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about like chapters or like organization with your first book. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then community. So I've had amazing experiences by asking people for help that I had no right to ask.
Yes.
And I don't believe I can ask for help.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to ask for
help. It
is.
Yes. It's part of it's a default. Oh. It's a negative belief. I can't ask for help. But somehow I always trick myself into doing it. Mm-hmm. So I've all the ways I've tricked myself. I asked Paul for help. He helped me. I asked David for help. He helped me. I didn't really think I was asking for help.
Yeah. So asking for help and how hard that can be for someone to, ask for guidance with something that maybe you don't think that you have the right to ask them.
Yeah. And it's when you say it that way, the word that comes back for me is imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. Because we're all imposters and we all have these beliefs about who we are and why we can and can't do something. I feel my flawed sense. I have thoughts and feelings about that. And then I inflate my need or I deflate it. Mm-hmm. So I can be a person who hides my need. Right. And I bet I'm crafty and I am anxious and I have this busy brain. So I trick myself into doing the things I need to do and believing I'm self-sufficient, even though I'm not. Mm-hmm. I'm better and better at it because I've made friends with those parts of myself, but it still happens. Mm-hmm. And so asking for help is an interesting measure. Some people ask for too much help and some people ask for too little.
Right.
Yeah.
So the balance
or just sensing into your own unique self. Mm-hmm. That it's okay if I've been somebody who has, we will say, an external locus of control. I look to others to help me, mm-hmm. or I wonder if they're the problem, or an internal locus of control. I help me. I'm constantly auditing me.
Mm-hmm. Well, even just going back to you taking a few years, wondering, questioning whether or not, okay, am I on the right path? And then finally taking that moment and saying, you know what, I just got to trust myself here.
Yeah.
Right.
And go back to it.
Yeah.
And being isolated and like hiding my need. Mm-hmm. I didn't go and I thought Paul was right when he said that to me. So I didn't go and get a bunch of different advice. Mm-hmm. I let it wash over me. I wrestled more. I was like, I have a ways to go because I have some flawed thinking about God. So to me, that was an illusion. I have some flawed thinking about love,
right,
which is what I want to write about.
Yes. Yeah. And talking to other people, like even just now, how that can change and trigger something in a person that, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's that point of view. Like I needed to hear that.
Yeah. And I'll say this at the risk of it being very human, about myself, mm-hmm. is that and it fits with recovery as well. It fits with all of it. But my flawed thinking was I believed in a violent God. I believed in a God who would kill his kid. I believed in a God who would lightning bolt people.
Mm-hmm.
And realizing that love is all inclusive, always inclusive, or it is not love, change that view.
Yes.
That God is loving. Circle of Security will say, whenever possibly, follow my child's need. Whenever necessary, take charge.
Mm-hmm.
Shifting my spiritual belief that love is about following need first. And then if I need to take charge, that's what we do as parents. That's a reflection. That's dealing with creation.
Mm-hmm.
So if I actually believe in, in a higher power that wants this nurturing relationship,
mm-hmm.
We're designed to mirror perfect love.
Right.
And when I believe that there is this entity ruling the cosmos and they're just want to maybe fucking kill us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That doesn't really do well for my sense of self-love or my sense of loving others.
Yes.
Changing that belief. Believing in nonviolent atonement. Believing that spirituality is really more sourced in love.
Mm-hmm.
There's a place within love for correction.
Right.
There isn't a place within love for punishment, for war, for violence, for all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
When I believe that there is a place for violence within love, even though I wouldn't have used the word violence, then I could be mean. Mm-hmm. Then I could justify negative behaviors that I think society are fine with legally, maybe even ethically, probably morally. We believe in violence. We think there's a place for violence.
Yes.
There isn't. There's no need.
Right. So, okay, maybe this is a controversial question to ask, but the difference, what's your opinion on the difference between spirituality and religion?
Yeah, well, I think religion is beautiful. Liturgy is beautiful. Thomas Merton would say that liturgy is all of us coming together in that musicy, resounding attachment experience.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that.
Right.
We go to a Christian church, an Orthodox church, a mass, and we're just reciting, or we're just being religious.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas spirituality, it's part of our wellness. It's knit into who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And both of the words are really risky.
Okay.
But it's what's behind the word. What's behind the word religion? What's behind the word spirituality? Can I find the relationship there?
Right.
And so I do have my bracelets over there. I took them off.
Yeah.
But I love rocks.
Right.
I love rocks. I like knowing what they do, and people worship rocks.
Yes.
I'm not religious about rocks.
Yeah.
But they mean a lot to me, and I feel a very spiritual, grounded connection to rocks.
Right.
Without religion.
Mm-hmm.
But it does something for my sense of connection with self and others and God.
Right.
And I'm okay with saying God.
Yeah.
Because that works for me, and other people can.
Yeah, some people do and some people don't. There's many different ways to.
I like saying Allah, but it's just not what I was raised with. You know? I like that word.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel good when I say it, but I wasn't raised to say that word.
Yeah. And so it's become but that's also self-love. And so you're judging, you can wind up judging yourself. Well, I am spiritual.
Yeah.
And you don't always want to tell people, well, I am a spiritual person. What does that mean to you?
And there's so many lies about words like religion, spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Christian is a word I have a real hard time with, but I like Christ.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time saying the word Jesus.
Okay.
But what is behind those words is my belief and my connection to higher power. It's because of spiritual abuse and trauma that I've endured. It's because of spiritual abuse and trauma other people have endured. Mm-hmm. And I don't want people to get lost in the language that I use because I don't have any absolute truths.
Yes.
I don't. Yeah. Love isn't about absolute truths.
Right.
So one day I'm regulated and I have this beautiful moment with my child and they eat the croissant. And the next day I might be regulated, but they don't eat it. Or I'm not regulated and they don't eat it. It's like there's no real foolproof plan of what's going to work. We wouldn't have the same conversation tomorrow.
No. No, absolutely. Like in 5 minutes.
In 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I think I'm going to name this episode Croissant.
Oh,
I love it. I do. I just love the way you keep going back to that.
well, yeah, you can call it croissant. I actually, while I look at you right now, I have croissants in the fridge, so I can even send a croissant with you.
That's awesome. Okay, I ask all of my guests this one question.
Mm-hmm.
What is the last best thing that you do every night before you go to bed?
The last best thing I do, I really think that it's silence. And when I'm doing well, when I'm not exiting into worrying about my flaws, or if I drink wine, I don't get that moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
wine doesn't work for me. I'm over 40. Women over 40 struggle with wine anyhow, because your body stops. It's a whole other topic.
Yes.
But if I'm not dissociating or pulling away, distracting myself, silence, being still, and like being in that moment before sleep is a beautiful place. And I think it roots me back into younger parts of self and younger bedtimes.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite things, there's two favorite things about sleeping I have. I love it when I have a dream about flying. I rarely have them because I'm so anxious.
Mm-hmm.
But when I do, they're so amazing.
Aren't they? Yes.
I love those dreams.
Yeah.
And then what I really love, and really when I'm doing a better job, this happens more often than not, my distractions are at bay. I'm kind of in the whole love thing, loving myself and trusting I'm included 90% or 75%. The goal is always 80%. We're
Yes.
never going to get better than that.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I feel better about trusting those things. Waking up with a song in my heart.
Right.
So if there's a sort of great moment, this great space where I can sink into myself before bed and be silent and contemplative, even if it's not profound.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, here I am going to sleep. After all these years of going to sleep, that might be the contemplation.
Yeah.
And then it can lead into a wakefulness where there's a song in my heart. Our brains do whatever they do through the night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. And I love everybody's answers. They're just so interesting. And and I think it's important to know that, again, that's what works for one person.
Yeah.
But all these little hints, it could be something that you can incorporate into your own bedtime routine.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said, you get 8 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah, I do. Well, 7.5 to 8. Because
Yeah.
I like being truthful. So if you shoot for 8, it's not actually 8. It's like 7 minutes 30 or 7 hours 38 minutes.
Right. Okay.
Let's be honest.
Right. Okay. If you can leave the listeners with one piece of advice, which I know is a very hard thing to come up with, just one.
But I'm not going to give one.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Can you give some advice?
So first off, if you can't afford mental health support, psychology services, we do have our Sojourn Psychology YouTube, which is just Sojourn Psychology on YouTube, or follow Carrie. Carrie's got great people. I've seen other guests that you've had, like Lisa from our office, but then you've had other psychologists and mental health workers in Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie's podcast is a great resource. Look for the resources. Find ways to interrupt your doom scrolling with positive things. Follow good things. If you're looking to connect with me, I'm not taking new clients, but the YouTube channel, it is Sojourn Psychology is the office I'm at. And those are the people I predominantly consult with and supervise. And I think my book is good. I'm happy with it. It's on Kindle for $9.99. It's on indigo.ca. I'm so happy about that.
That's exciting.
It's super exciting. It's like a real bookstore.
Yeah.
For $24.99. You can follow me on Instagram, Tara Boothby, and if you want more. But the book is Love and Love's Energy. And if I'll leave you guys with this. So this is the dedication, and this is who the book is dedicated to. Is that to the dappled, the damaged, the broken, to the wounded and to the forgotten, to the lonely, to no one and to everyone, but most of all to you, just the way you are, to you. Oh,
You're getting me.
Yeah, to you and for you, I write this book because you too are loved, lovable, and loving. And I'm very glad you are here.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's beautiful to connect and to feel immense gratitude. And I feel immense gratitude to you, Carrie, and this beautiful moment, this like morning we get to share. And I hope people will find this book, Love and Love's Energy, or a book or a podcast. Find a place where you get contemplative and feel the feelings and cry the tears.
Yeah.
One of my theologian friends says, theologians cry. Okay. So whenever I see people tearing up, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's spirituality. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So thank you. I mean, we have to do this again. I'm just at the risk of sounding like overly inflated. This was amazing.
I'm so glad. I loved every second of it. It's just so much fun. I mean it when I say I could just talk to you for hours. The way your theories on everything, the way you bring it out, and it is done with love, and it
Thank
shows.
You.
I felt it as soon as I felt comfortable, as soon as I walked in the room and met you, and I think that your book is going to be amazing. And
thank you.
Yeah, you have to pick it up.
And I really too, like, I know all the ways that I have been unloving. Mm-hmm. And I really try to hone in on all the ways that I am loved, lovable, and loving. Mm-hmm. Because the unloving stuff is a lie that we have personified, or we've taught ourselves, or other people have taught us. Mm-hmm. And don't focus on that crap. It's part of who you are. It's part of who I am, mm-hmm. or the terrible things I've done. But I'm loving.
That's right. Yeah, deep down it comes all down to, and you're full of it, full of love.
Full of it.
You are.
If that's what I'm full of, I'm fine with it. Exactly. I'm fine with that shit. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, full of love and croissants.
Full of love and croissants.
Thank you again, Tara. We'll be doing this again for sure.
Definitely. Thank you, Carrie.
Okay. Well, that was another great episode of the Carry On with Carrie podcast. I am so thrilled that I was able to sit down and talk with Tara, and you can see why the conversation didn't want to end. We had such a great time talking and relating. You want to give her a follow. Finding out more about Tara Boothby, how can you get a hold of her? You can contact her at Sojourn Psychology here in Sherwood Park, Canada. You can go to the sojo.ca counseling website. And then how to get a copy of Love and Love's Energy. Check out Amazon, and it's also available on Kindle. Please give her a follow on Instagram at Tara_Boothby. And let's give her some support. I really think that, checking out this book is going to make a big difference for you. And yes, so check her out. Thank you again, Tara. I also wanted to mention a few dates that are coming up for Tara. I also wanted to share one of her events coming up. It's an attachment workshop, and it's in the Canadian Rockies. It's going to be held at the Canmore Opera House in Canmore, Alberta, Friday, May 17th from 9 a.m. till 3:30. One of the prerequisites is order and read your copy of Love and Love's Energy. At the end of this workshop, you will have a certificate of completion for reading Love and Love's Energy and a certificate of attendance for the 5 hours of professional development. All right, and I do have one other thing. She has a book signing coming up here. It's a community networking and book signing event at Onyx Wellness in Sherwood Park, Alberta. It is on June 14th this year at 6:30 p.m. You can look up the location online if you give her a follow on her Instagram, and give Onyx Wellness a follow as well at Onyx Counselling. So it's one full word, ONYX. Counselling. Please give me a follow and a share. You can find me on Carry On with Carrie _podcast on Instagram, or you can find me on Facebook at Carry On with Carrie podcast. You can also take a listen to me and give me a share and follow and all those good things. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube. And let's just try to help one more person at a time.